Hello, this is Andrew from the Gravity's Rainbow Analysis Substack, now known as the Exegesis of Thomas Pynchon's Substack, mostly because it will soon not just be analyzing Gravity's Rainbow, because in a few months I will be analyzing Mason and Dixon, and then, I don't know, a few years after that, we'll be moving on to other of Pynchon's novels. This has been a project that I started about a year and 7 months ago, mostly because I don't feel like there'd ever been a true socio-political, socio-economic analysis of Gravity's Rainbow. Most of the ones that are published focus on some of the nuances like the tarot or on the Kabbalah or on the literary stuff that Thomas Pynchon does or that the rules that he breaks. But in terms of politics and economics and general leftist sentiment, that's the kind of stuff that you can only really find in random places on the web like Reddit or other sources like that, which have their flaws. But hey, at least they have those kind of commentaries. But I thought that I'd finally put together a full-length analysis, and that's what I started about a year and a half ago. I want to keep that resource, the written resource, free for everybody forever, as long as the internet exists, as long as we exist. But I thought a lot of people do prefer to listen to things like this. So I bought a mic, and now I'm recording the exact translations or the exact transcriptions of what I've written. I'm excited to do this because I get to see the development of thought, because I know my opinions on a lot of these things have changed over time. And I'm also excited to be able to present this in a new way. I am going to be making this an option for paid members only, because these posts do take quite a lot of time. They take numerous hours a week, and I love doing it. But with the new equipment and just putting even more time into it to do these recordings, I decided to make it for paid members, and I hope that's okay with you all. But I will be keeping those written posts free forever. So if you would like, subscribe, or not, which is fine with me as well, as long as you prefer reading. But this post will be the first and only free one in terms of the audio posts. So I'm going to begin here with the title, the epigraph of Gravity's Rainbow, along with the title and epigraph of part 1 of Gravity's Rainbow, and then moving on from there. So I hope you enjoy. Thank you. Gravity's Rainbow, part 1, chapter 0. It begins and ends with oil. Gravity's Rainbow analysis on the title, the dedication, and the title and epigraph of part 1, Beyond the Zero. Quote, "Consider coal and steel. There is a place where they meet." End quote. And where do they meet? Well, that is what Gravity's Rainbow is really all about. The how, why, and where they eternally come in contact. How the forces at play create a world built from these substances, their precursors, their derivatives. What we have done and are willing to do to continue their extraction. What hidden worlds they have unlocked which should have always remained invisible to our eyes and our mind. Why we do not need to live like this. Why we should not continue to live like this. It is an unheard warning written 50 years ago, but it is a warning that despite our original discounting can be heeded any time we so choose to fight back. Though it must be understood first. The title, Gravity's Rainbow, poetically describes the rising and falling parabolic arc of a V2 rocket, one which rises and accelerates with the burning of fuels until branchless, the cessation, the fall back to Earth. It is the unnatural use of our resources which rocketed death up to points that should never have been reached, now allowing nature, gravity itself, to take its course. The rainbow should have come after rain, an image in the sky that is revealed like parting curtains after the gloomy cloud cover departs. Yet it is not so in this situation. Again, our destruction of nature has reversed the process. The rainbow, the parabola, comes first, and the gray clouds demonically rise and plume after. One of Pynchon's best friends, whom Pynchon dedicated Gravity's Rainbow to, Richard Fariña, was a countercultural writer and musician who died just days after the publication of his novel, Been Down So Long It Looks Like Up to Me. While I haven't read this novel, one would suspect that the main character, who regularly attacks authority figures and was an anti-establishment activist, was not one that the establishment would care much for. nor would they care for Fariña's own political activism, demonstrations, or overtly political protest music. He died in a mysterious motorcycle accident traveling 90 miles per hour with a stranger, who survived, 2 days after his novel was released. Take that as you will. If he had survived, he likely would have agreed with Pynchon's ideas on our destruction of the natural order to create a new, far more evil society. And so comes part 1 of Gravity's Rainbow, Beyond the Zero. A funny little joke because, well, the massive 1 above the title is clearly beyond 0, but it is also a reference toward an infinite number of the zeros that we perceive or don't perceive every day. It is the x-axis, the real grounded plane on which we exist, or time itself, where the parabola rises above and falls back down too. What is beyond it? Well, there is of course the obvious infinite points on the y-axis where we see the rise and fall of the rocket, or the high point on which our characters observe the broken spectre phenomenon. It is also the negatives, the below world, where agencies lurk to propagate whatever nefarious plans they may have to further outrace time, creating a life for themselves in which they will rise vertically, beating time itself, leaving us to rot and sink further beneath the ground. Or it could even be the often unseen third plane, where hidden meanings and worlds lie. The supernatural, the mythic legends that live in the recesses of our thought, the opening of red curtains where we see a scene transformed into song, or a dream world that shows the true happenings of society as people are shuffled off to hotel rooms to die, while the elite hurtle out of the danger zone at vast speeds. This is what this part and what this novel concerns. Those things that lie beyond reality, whether supernatural or not. And who better to introduce this section than Werner von Braun himself, former Nazi rocket scientist who made use of slave labor for certain projects, brought over to the US post-World War II in order to assist us in our own series of weapons manufacturing-related desires, sins entirely forgiven. I would highly recommend doing some research into Operation Paperclip if you don't know much about it. It's America's post-World War II science scene that was plagued with sheltered Nazis who helped build the world in which we live and which Pynchon describes within Gravity's Rainbow. The quote itself could easily be misread as a sort of hopeful religious belief in the afterlife, i.e. beyond the zero once again, but given the speaker, its intentions hold far less beatitude. Quote, "Nature does not know extinction. All it knows is transformation. Everything science has taught me and continues to teach me strengthens my belief in the continuity of our spiritual existence after death." Werner von Braun. The first sentence calls to mind the seance scene far later in the novel, from the same passage of which I started this piece, where it describes Earth's resources, oils, and coals as once living creatures, now brought back to life, but not brought back from death to any rebirth. It is death to death transfigured. Life has passed and sunk beneath the earth, transforming into whatever substance dead organic matter will, and then extracted to become another form of death, fuel for the rocket. Notice also how he states that this is what science has taught him. Gravity's Rainbow is as much a condemnation of society's adoption of science as the end-all be-all, the infallible doctrine, as it is a condemnation of anything else. Our world's ignorance of any humanities or any sort of human solidarity has led to belief in pure, reproducible fact, chemical, biological, physical, or whatever. No nuance can be delved into, no complexity in regard to emotion or what we really need. Just that X leads to Y, and there is nothing that could surpass this in importance. Finally, he speaks of, quote, our spiritual existence after death, end quote. Our own beyond the zero. If the decay of past creatures has created oil, plastics, coal, fuel, what will we leave behind? If they were transfigured into a new form of death, what will the remnants of death's creator be used for? A new and unfound form of death, or something that surpasses death itself? The answers lie in the book. Hopefully, I can help unpack those answers. All quotes will come from the Penguin Books paperback with the original cover, the orange sky with the yellow glow over the silhouette of a city, and a blue block lettered title. Each post will also encompass either an entire chapter or one of the transition areas, unless I come across something that merits its own post. That is the end of part 1, chapter 0. Just a couple notes. Now that it's been, oh gosh, how long has it been? Now that it's been a year and 7 months? It's been about a year and 7 months. My few notes on this are going to be: 1, as I read, I notice that, yes, in fact, I often do mispronounce Thomas Pynchon's name. That's because I learned about Pynchon in high school and began reading about him and was kind of obsessed with him and other weird literary figures of the time. And for, I'd say, at least a decade, I had started, it probably wasn't a decade, but at least like 8 years, I had never heard his name spoken, so I always said Pynchon, Pynchon, Pynchon. I started talking to people like my girlfriend, now wife, about him, and I would always call him Pynchon. And then one day I heard, actually, it's pronounced Pynchon. So forgive me for mispronouncing his name, which I'll probably do quite regularly on here. Hard to fix a habit that you formed after 8 years, but I'll try my best to get it right. Other than that, I'm going to try to reduce the amount that I say quote end quote, but I do want to make it pretty clear when I'm quoting something as opposed to something that's my original thought. So I will say quote end quote when I'm quoting Pynchon or whatever else I might be quoting, but I won't be reading the page numbers that I do have put in the body of the text itself, unless I am referencing something that is not in the chapter I'm currently writing or reading about. If it's something that I'm referencing from the past, then I will mention at least the part, and I'll decide on if I want to read the page number, but I probably won't. I'll probably just read the part and chapter. The only other side note I have is that I did actually finally read Richard Fariña's novel, Been Down So Long It Looks Like Up From Here. And I have to say, it's quite good. It's one of the funniest books I've ever read. I do remember a scene in the fraternity house that does kind of end in one of the most absurd, I don't even know what I would call it, the most absurd rants and ravings of a drunken madman that I've ever read, and had me quite literally laughing out loud. And overall, the novel is just a great commentary on rebelling against an establishment in kind of a weird way, since it's largely a college student-based novel. But nonetheless, it does a really good job of getting those points across. So I do recommend checking that one out if you ever have the time or if you can find it. But other than that, I think that's it for this first post. So I will see you next time when we start Gravity's Rainbow proper with part 1, chapter 1. Thank you.